Happy day students! Welcome to Sun Academy Group of Schools, Pallikaranai, Grade 8 Science. And today we are going to discuss about the first chapter of Grade 8 Science, Crop Production and Management. Come on children, let us get into the lesson. So, why is it important to learn about crop production and management? Is it so important? Of course, it is very important because all the living organisms like man, animal and plants need food for their growth and survival. And where do they get their food from? Of course, you all know, right? They get their food from the green plants because green plants are the only living thing which can synthesize their own food and by the process of photosynthesis. And in this photosynthesis, what are they using? They are using substances like carbon dioxide, water in the presence of what? Sunlight, and all these are inorganic substance, whereas man and other animals cannot make food by photosynthesis, and hence we are either directly or indirectly dependent upon plants for the food. And these plants, when they are grown in a large amount, we call it as crop production. And is it enough if we only produce the crops? Of course, it is our responsibility to maintain, that is to manage them, maintain them and make it possible that it is reaching the consumer. Now let us discuss a little about what is nomadic life. Almost you know that this practice of agriculture, that is practice of growing plants and getting food from that, was not in practice right from the existence of human being on the earth. Almost till 10,000 BC. People were nomadic. What does the word nomadic means? The people, those who are wandering in groups from one place to another in search of food and shelter are called nomads. And till 10,000 BC, people were leading only nomadic life. They didn't know anything about growing crops and making their own food. Only after 10,000 BC, people started growing plants and getting food from them, and that is what they started cultivating land, and they produced rice, wheat and other food crops, and that is how agriculture came into practice. So, what are the different agricultural practices? Okay, before knowing what are the different agricultural practices are, we should know what is a crop. So, can you just tell me what is a crop? Of course, you all have guessed it out right. When the same kind of plant are grown in the field on a large scale to obtain foods like cereal, wheat, rice, maize, pulses, vegetables and fruits, etc., it is called a crop. That is, please remember, when the same kind of plant, what is it? Same kind of plant, if it is grown in a large scale, we call it as crop. And there are different kinds of crops available like cereals, fruits and vegetables. And I have given here only a very little example. Apart from this, you have even wheat, maize, pulses, etc. and etc. The list keeps on expanding. And we all know India is a vast country. That is, India is a big country where we have different range of temperature, humidity level and rainfall level, so that the growth of crops also vary from one place to another. And always remember, agriculture is a backbone of India because the main occupation of India is agriculture. So just now we discussed about crops. So crops can be broadly classified into two types based upon the season, that is during which season the crop is growing. And those two types are Kharif crops and Rabi crops. So what are Kharif crops? When are these Kharif crops generally grown? So to put it in a nutshell, the crops which are grown in the rainy season, that too between June to September, are called Kharif crop. And as we all know, in India the rainy season is falling between June to September. So the sowing for Kharif crop starts in June or July at the beginning of the southwest monsoon, because these crops, particularly paddy, needs substantial amount of water, that is more amount of water, and the Kharif crops are harvested at the end of the monsoon season during September or end the October. Some examples of Kharif crops are paddy, maize, groundnut, soya bean, cotton, etc. Now let us discuss a little about Rabi crops. So these Rabi crops are generally grown from the month of October to March. Can you tell me what season will we have during the month of October to March? You are right, we have winter season. And when are the seeds are being sown for Rabi crops? Generally, the sowing for Rabi crops begins at the beginning of the winter, that is somewhere between October and November, and the crops are harvested by the March or April. And some examples of Rabi crops are wheat, gram, pea, linseed, mustard, etc. So now let us discuss about the basic practice of crop production. Is it that crop can be produced just like that? No. Crop production has a systematic step-by-step practice that has to be followed by the farmer. So in order to raise a crop or cultivate a crop successfully and profitably for food production, a farmer has to perform a large number of tasks in a sequence, that is one after the other, and the various tasks performed by the farmer to produce a good crop are called agricultural practices. So the basic practice of crop production is otherwise called agricultural practices, and the various agricultural practices which are carried out at the various stage of crop production are: the first practice is preparation of soil, and the second is sowing, and the third is adding manure and fertilizer, and the fourth is irrigation, followed by which we have to remove the weeds, and then it is harvesting, and after harvesting we have to store the food grains or the harvested crops. So let me repeat it for you again. The systematic agricultural practice, the first step is preparation of soil, and the second step is sowing. And what is the third step? Adding manure and fertilizer. Only then the sown seeds can grow healthily, right? And the fourth step is irrigation. And what is the fifth step? After irrigation, your crops will start growing, but along with the crops, even certain unwanted plants will grow. So we have to protect those crops from these unwanted plants which are called weeds. So what is the fifth step? It is protecting from weeds. And after that, what is the sixth? It is harvesting. So once we are ready with the crops, that is the food grains or whatever it may be, finally it has to be stored. Then only we can make it sure that it is going to reach the consumer. So now let us discuss about the first step in the agricultural practice, which is preparation of soil. So the upper layer of the earth is called as soil, as we all know that, right? And the crop plants are generally grown where? In soil. And what does the soil provides? This soil provides the crop with mineral, water, air, humus, and we all know that this soil only is acting as an anchorage to the plant. So this soil has to be prepared, and that is the first step in cultivating a crop for food production. So how is this soil prepared? So the soil is prepared for what first? It is being prepared for sowing the seeds of the crop. And how it is being prepared? That preparation involves three steps. One is plowing, which is followed by leveling, and the third is manuring. So what is plowing? So the first step before growing the crop is preparation of soil, and the first step in preparation of soil is ploughing. And what is being done during ploughing? It is used to turn the soil and loosen it. So what for we are doing ploughing? To turn the soil and loosen it so that it will become useful. That is, the soil will become useful for the plant roots to penetrate into it. Apart from that, it will also help the growth of microbes and earthworms. Okay, you may ask why the earthworms have to grow in the soil? Because these earthworms are generally considered as the farmers' best friends, because they are the natural plowers of the soil. We all know earthworm lives inside the soil, and are they going to stay in the same place? No, not at all. They will be continuously moving, and when they are moving, they keep on turning the soil, that is tilling the soil, and that is why the earthworms are called as farmers' best friend. And what is the advantage of this tilling the soil continuously? So that the soil which is on the topmost layer, when it is getting exhausted of minerals, it will move down, and due to the tilling process, the layer of soil which was beneath will come up, so that there will be a consistent flow of nutrients for the crop. And this process of turning or loosening the soil is generally called as tillage or ploughing. And this process of tillage or ploughing is the first step in cultivating any crop for food production. So here you can see few tools or few agricultural implements which are used for various purposes. And the first picture is a wooden plough, which is exclusively used for preparation of soil, that is for ploughing or tillage of soil. And the second implement is a hoe, which is used for removing the weeds. And the third implement is a cultivator, which is used for harvesting the grown crops. Now let us discuss about the second step in the preparation of soil. Okay, in the first step, what did we do? We were continuously tilting the soil, right? So that now the surface of the soil will be uneven. So we have to make it even, right? And the process of making the layer of soil even is called leveling of soil. And land leveling is used to adjust the soil surface and standardize its slope. That is, to make the slope of soil even. And why it has to be done? Only then the distribution of water through irrigation will be equal, and it will also improve the field condition for several other agricultural practices like sowing of seed also. Now let us discuss about the third step, which is sowing. Okay, now we are done with the preparation of soil. So what should we do next? Of course, we have to sow the seed. Only from the seed crops grow, right? So what care should we take before sowing? So before sowing, good quality of seeds should be selected so that we will get a better yield. And while sowing, we have to make sure that the proper distance between the seed is maintained. And why it is very important? Because imagine if you are going to sow almost a bunch of or a handful of seed in the same place, and when the seeds start germinating, they will start competing among themselves for the food. And that is the reason when we are going to sow the seeds at the proper distance, this competition for nutrients will not be there, and the chance of each seed growing into a crop will be maximum. And that is the reason why the seeds have to be sown at proper distance. And This sowing is done only at a particular time period of optimum rainfall at a correct climatic condition for good germination of seeds. This is, for example, if you are going to sow the seed on a hot summer time, the seed will not get enough moisture. On the other hand, if you are going to sow the seed during heavy rainfall, the seed will get over soaked by the rainwater and the chance of the seed getting spoiled is very high. So that when we are going to sow the seed, we should be careful that there is optimum rainfall and we are sowing the seed on the correct climatic condition, and that is what we discussed, right? For Kharif crop and Rabi crops, during which month they are sowing the seeds, and this deciding the correct climatic condition depends upon the type of the crop what we are expecting. So based on that, the time when we have to sow the seed also will vary from crop to crop. So these are the two implements which are used for sowing the seeds, and in this picture you can see the traditional tool which is used for sowing the seed, where they will be having a funnel like opening on the top and a long narrow tube, and it will be attached to the plow of the wooden plow, and it will be pulled by the bullocks, so that the farmers will be dropping the seeds in this funnel like opening, and as the animal is moving forward, the seeds will be sown. Whereas nowadays we have the modern equipment called machine seed drills, which are being operated or pulled by machines, and this is more efficient because the proper distance between each seeds that are sown can be maintained successfully. Now, coming to the next step in agricultural practice. So far we are done with the preparation of soil, and the next we have also sown our seed. Now we have to provide the nutrients, right? Then only the seed can germinate and it can grow into a crop. And what we have to do for that? Of course, we have to add manure and fertilizer. So the substance that are added to soil in the form of nutrient is called as manure or fertilizer. Whereas these manure and fertilizer are completely different, because manure is an organic compound obtained from the decomposition of plant or animal waste. So we can also say that this manure is something which is environmentally friendly. Whereas fertilizer is a chemical compound that has a particular nutrients. That is, fertilizers are man-made, that is, they are made in the laboratory, and they can be prepared in such a way that they will have specific nutrients which are required by the farmers, but they are not environment friendly. Apart from this, in order to increase the fertility of the soil, the practice of crop rotation is also followed. And what does the word crop rotation means? For example, if you are growing a particular crop in the field, and after the harvesting, that particular crop would have absorbed the nutrients. So the soil will be depleted of that nutrient. So now you can select another crop which will not require the nutrients absorbed by the previous crops, so that this second crop will also grow healthily. At the same time, if we are going to select a crop like leguminous plants, they will fix the nitrogen also to the soil, and this is also one natural method of enriching the fertility of the soil. So the crop rotation is a very important practice which is farmer friendly as well as environment friendly. Why we have to do this crop rotation? As I told you, the fertility of the soil can be improved by crop rotation, where in different types of crops, for example, leguminous crops and non-leguminous crops are grown alternatively in the same field or soil, and that practice is called as crop protection. Why? Because if it is going to be a non-leguminous plants, they will only absorb nitrogen from the soil. After harvesting that non-leguminous plant, if you are going to plant a leguminous crop, it will fix the nitrogen back to the soil, and hence the nitrogen which was absorbed by another crop has now been naturally fixed back to the soil, and that is why crop rotation is also a best method that we can follow in order to ensure the fertility of the soil. Now, so coming to the next step. So let us have a quick recap. We have prepared the soil, we have sown the seeds, we have added the nutrients in the form of what? In the form of manure and fertilizer. Now what we should do? We know a plant also requires water for its proper growth, and the method of providing water artificially is called irrigation, because the farmers cannot rely only on the rainfall for the growth of crops and for a successful harvesting. So they do provide water artificially to their agricultural field, and this process of artificially supplying water to the crop for its growth is called as irrigation. And this irrigation has an advantage where the water can be supplied at the required time, in the required frequency and the required quantity depending upon the crop that we are cultivating. For example, if we are going to depend on the rainfall, if it is going to rain heavily and if our crop is not in need of much water, we cannot stop it in any way. We cannot stop the rain, right? But whereas if we are going to go for irrigation, we can decide by what time we have to water the field and at what frequency we have to water the field, and the quantity of the water what we should allow to pass inside the field also can be under our control. And for this irrigation, we have different sources like wells, ponds, lake, river, dam, canal, borewells, etc. So now let us discuss about traditional methods of irrigation. Then by this seeing this slide, you will have a question. Then do we have one more type or one more method of irrigation? Yes, of course. We have a modern method of irrigation which we will be discussing a little later. So now coming to traditional methods of irrigation, we have 4 traditional methods of irrigation like mott or pulley system, chain pump system, Deckley and Rahat or lever system. So what is this mott? By seeing the picture itself, you would have got an idea. It is nothing but taking water from the well with the help of a pulley and pouring it into the a canal through which the water is going to pass through and reach the agricultural field. But it requires a lot of human labor and it is quite time consuming also. Whereas coming to chain pump system, in chain pump is an arrangement to lift water from a source of water like a stream, pond or lake, whichever is at a lower level than the field where we are going to do the irrigation, so as to provide irrigation to the field. A chain pump generally consists of 2 large wheels, one fixed at the lower level of the water source and the other fixed at the higher level above the field, and the 2 wheels are connected by the chain passing over them, just like how your cycle wheels are connected with the chain. On the chain are hung small buckets, so that in the chain there will be small buckets which will be fixed. And below the bottom wheel is a source of water like stream, pond or lake, whatever it might be. But remember, it should be at a lower level than the field what we are going to irrigate. And a handle is attached to the axle of the upper wheel. And when the handle attached to the upper wheel is being rotated by the farmer, the wheels connected by the chain starts turning. And when the lower wheel turns, the bucket attached to the chain dip in the stream and get filled with the water, and the moving chain then lifts these buckets filled with water to the upper wheel, and where the bucket tilts and it gets emptied into the field to provide water for irrigation. And now coming to Deckley system. And Deckley is an arrangement to lift water from shallow wells by using the principle of simple lever. And this word Deckley means lever beam of well. And the Deckley is a long wooden beam which is supported over a forked vertical support. This is the Deckley, which is the long narrow beam of wood, and you can see that it is being supported by a vertical fork. And what will be the rest? And the bucket is tied to one end of the long lever. As you can see, the bucket is tied to this end and a heavy stone is tied to the other end of the long arm. In order to lift the water from the well, the end of the long levered arm carrying the bucket is pulled down by the rope. When the bucket is lowered into the well, it gets filled with water. On releasing the rope, the weight attached to the end of the short levered arm comes down and lifts the water filled with bucket, and that water has to be manually taken from the bucket and poured into the agricultural field. Now coming to Rahat system, which is also a lever system. And in Rahat system of irrigation, water is drawn out from a well. And in this method, there is a large wheel fixed on an axle above the mouth of the well. Along, as you can see, this is the large wheel which is fixed on the axle above the mouth of the well, and a long belt with many small metal pots is put over the circumference of the big wheel, which can move over the wheel when the wheel turns. And what happens? The lower end of the long belt of the pot dips the water of the well, and the big wheel is turned by using a lever system driven by the force of bullocks or any other animal. When the bullocks move, the long horizontal handle of the lever system, by going round and round, the big wheel fixed over the mouth of the well starts rotation. And when the wheel rotates, the water-filled pots come out of the well one after the other and go over the wheel, come downward, pour water in the channel and get emptied, and then go down again into the well to bring out more water. And the water brought out by the pots connected to a continuously rotating belt is used for irrigating the field. And these are the 4 different types of traditional irrigation method. Now let us discuss about the modern irrigation method, and under that first we are going to discuss about sprinkler irrigation, which is almost a mimic of artificial rainfall. And what happens in the sprinkler irrigation? In the sprinkler system of irrigation, a main pipeline is laid in the field. Perpendicular pipelines having rotating nozzles at the top are joined to the main pipeline at regular interval. And when water from the tube well is allowed to flow through the main pipeline under the pressure with the help of pump, it escapes from the rotating nozzles, as you can see in this picture. This is the rotating nozzle. And the water gets sprinkled on the crop plants as if it is raining. And the sprinkler system of irrigation is more useful for uneven lands, because in uneven lands we cannot follow drip irrigation, which is another modern method of irrigation, and where sufficient, and not only in uneven lands, even the land where there is no sufficient water is available also, we generally prefer sprinkler system. And the sprinkler system is also very useful for sandy soil. Now let us discuss about another modern method of irrigation, which is drip irrigation. It is a mimic of waterfalls, drop by drop, to closer to the root zone. So what is this drip irrigation? In the drip irrigation system, there is a network of narrow pipe of tubes. As you can see, two tubes like this, there will be a network of narrow pipes or tubes with a small hole. As you can see in this picture, you can see the small hole from which the water is dripping. And when water flows through the narrow pipes, it falls drop by drop at the position of the root of the plant. And this water is absorbed by soil in the root zone of the plant and is utilized by plants. There is no runoff or wastage of water when we are following drip irrigation. So, again, let us start from the beginning. We are done with the preparation of soil. We are done with the sowing of seeds. We have added manure and fertilizers, and we have given the nutrients, and now we have even met the water requirement from irrigation. So what will be all these are the actions. So what will be the reaction? Definitely the crop will start growing. Not only the crop, even certain unwanted plants also will grow along with the crop, and those undesirable plants growing along with the crops are called weeds, and these weeds have to be removed, and the process of removing the weed is called weeding, and it is mainly done by man. That is, the farmer used to go with the hoe and he used to remove the weeds manually, or it can be done by using a chemical called weedicides, which can be sprayed in the field so that the weeds will be killed. So the modern methods like weeders are also used, like cono weeders, star weeders, etc. to remove the weeds. Okay, why is it mandatory that we have to remove the weeds? Imagine I am giving you a plate of pizza, and you have two friends are there, and we know pizzas generally come with 4 pieces or 6 pieces. If 2 of you are there, you will be getting 3 each. For example, all of a sudden some outside a stranger is coming, and if he is also going to compete with you for the pizza, automatically your portion will reduce, right? The same way the crops will be fighting for the nutrients, and when these weeds are going to grow, what will happen? They will also start fighting for the nutrients which are actually supposed to be available for the required crops, and that is why only if we remove these weeds, the nutrients that are present in the soil will not be wasted, and it can be completely utilized by the crops. So let me give you a recap. The unwanted plants growing along with the crop is called weeds, and the process of removing these weeds are called as weeding, and it can be done either manually or it can be done using a chemicals called weedicides. So finally, let us again from the beginning. We have prepared the soil, we have sown the seeds, we have added manure and fertilizers, and we have even irrigated the field, and we have also removed the unwanted plants, that is the weeds. Now what is left? Fully grown healthy crops, and these crops have to be cut, and that is called as harvesting. So cutting of crops after they are matured is called harvesting, and traditionally they are done with a hand tool called sickle, whereas in modern days a combine harvester is used, as you can see in the picture. And once the crop is harvested, they are further put into different processes called threshing, winnowing, cleaning, dehusking, polishing, and after which only we can store them. So what is this process called threshing? The crops will be bit, or they will beat the crops against hard surfaces so that the grains will be loosened from the husk. And what is this winnowing? When they are going to shake the husk and the grains together along the flow of wind, the husks will get blown away, whereas the grains will fall immediately below the place where they are standing, and that is called winnowing. So we can put it in a nutshell, the separation of husk and the grains by wind is called winnowing. And what is cleaning? Even after winnowing, manual cleaning will be done in order to remove the other undesired particles. And dehusking is, there will be few chaffs binded towards the grain. So that has to be removed. And finally, certain times the grains are polished, whereas certain times the grains are not polished, and all these are together called as post-harvesting processes because they can be done only after the crop have been harvested. And so now we are done with all the agricultural practices and we have got even the food grain in our hand. Now what we should do? We have to store them safely, right? Only producing is not a fully done job. Storing them properly and taking care of them and making sure that it is reaching the consumer, only then it means that the job is completed. So the harvested grains are stored for a long period. But when we are storing, we have to be sure that it is kept away from moisture, rat and pathogen. And before storage, the grains are dried to reduce the moisture content. And then the large scale storages are done in silos and granaries. Coming to the last part of the lesson, it is animal husbandry. So, apart from growing crops, farmers generally grow several animals which help them in several ways, both in order to perform their agriculture as well as it helps them in monetary benefit by giving animal products like meat, milk, egg, etc. So this animal husbandry is nothing but a practice of breeding, farming and taking care of farm animals which are going to give human a lot of advantages. So this animal husbandry is also referred to livestock raising and selective breeding, and it is a branch of agriculture. So animal husbandry is nothing but taking care of animals, that is we have to take care or practice the practicing the breeding, farming and taking care of animals which are going to give us more amount of monetary benefit, and that practice is called as animal husbandry. And those animals which are being taken care by the farmers are called as livestock, and this animal husbandry is also a branch of agriculture. Hope the lesson is clear for you students. Thank you.